Hello everyone. So the other day I was reading a magazine when I came across a really startling article. The article was released from Copernicus Publications this year, and it concluded that methane emissions from landfills emitted to 15 to 20% of the total methane emitted from all of our human practices. This was startling to me because methane is a very volatile greenhouse gas, and I know that it contributes majorly to global warming. Today, I want to be talking about one way that you can help decrease your greenhouse gas emissions. Personally, I started doing this practice a couple years ago. It's composting, and I began using my waste to complement my passion for it. Today, I'm going to be talking about exactly how greenhouse gases are emitted from landfills, how composting decreases these emissions, and how awesome compost is and how it can be used for the future. So what exactly is methane gas? It's a powerful greenhouse gas emitted through certain reactions created in certain environments. A study released in the AGU journal, AGU is AGU, stands for Agricultural Growth Universal Journal, in 2003. It detailed how these biodegradable fractions decompose via a complex series of microbial reactions in the certain situations that they occur. For instance, under landfills, which are usually capped with gas, or not gas, with grass, or with plastic, it creates an environment with little to no oxygen, which leads to methane, production. I'm sure you all have seen methane coming out of landfills. Number one, that you smell it when you go by, and if you've ever passed at night, you see the flares coming off the top. I'm sure that's something we've all experienced. Another thing that makes people not really like composting is the smell, and that is actually not composting that's happening. It's an anaerobic production that's happening, and it's methane that you're smelling. If this goes unchecked, if methane production goes unchecked, it could potentially increase our climate change, and it could wrap in global warming, or just contribute to climate change, as they say. So my solution to this problem and to help decrease these methane emissions would be composting. It's a naturally occurring process that already happens across forests worldwide, and for humans, it really was the only way that these forest systems were getting their nutrients. It releases very few emissions while still being very efficient at recycling these nutrients. It doesn't rely on rotting, whereas it decomposes. Now, some people don't really know the difference, but rotting happens under anaerobic conditions, and it produces smelly, foul odors such as methane, sulfur, and other stuff, whereas anaerobic just occurs aerobically with a lot of oxygen, and it does not give off these foul smelling odors. A 1996 study under Compost Science and Utilization praised compost for its ease, its inexpensiveness, and its valuable end product. This was an early compost entrepreneur, as you would say. They really pioneered home composting for other people. And then another scientific journal released this year by Elsevier Publications detailed home composters in Sweden. They looked at small contained home composting systems throughout, obviously, the country of Sweden, and they found that the ratio of methane to carbon dioxide released was far lower in these small settings, even in the large setting, compared to even the large settings. So that means that a lot of small compost systems would even be more effective than just one large compost system. So for me, I took away personally that each home should have a compost system for this to be most effective at decreasing our emissions. And one other thing that people say about composting, like I said earlier, is how it's smelly, and they don't have the room to do it. They can't. It's smelly. Maybe they don't eat enough organic things. It doesn't have to be organic. When I say organic, I mean decomposable. But there's things that you could buy online that are home compost systems that utilize maybe worms or even just other systems, other ways to compost stuff that it makes it inexcusable to not compost and not want to get rid of your trash in a responsible manner. Some visualization for you guys for what Earth could look like in a number of years if we do not compost. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this. This is Mars, actually. People say that Mars used to look like Earth a couple thousand years ago. Now, this might not be a direct influence in, let's say, 10 to 20 years, but if we continue down this path and we keep abusing our resources, then ultimately we could, there's nothing saying we couldn't reach a similar fate where our water gets volatilized into our atmosphere and we no longer have our oceans, we no longer have our climate regulators, and we're just barren rocks in the earth. If we utilize compost and we utilize systems that use naturally occurring processes that have been honed over millions of years, then we could potentially feed the earth with little to no impact, or feed the population of the earth with little to no impact on the earth. And I think that composting could play a major role in this. As you see, there's a bunch of trees, and as the trees drop their leaves, they make like natural compost, and it's kind of just a natural system. I was reading this article in Mother Earth magazine news. It was released in 2009. The first year that this author started composting, she saved $60, and that was pretty major because she wasn't spending $60 on synthetic products that were going to pollute the earth, all that good stuff. And the second year, she aimed to be completely self-sufficient and not buy any synthetic products. That was pretty major because she's just using her waste, like something that would normally contribute to her methane production, and now she completely cut that out and used it in her garden to even further her methane decrease consumption, as you'd say. So today I talked about methane emitted from landfills, exactly how it's emitted and why that happens. I talked about how composting can be used to decrease these emissions. I talked about how the process emits less than it just rotting there. And then I talked about how compost can be used in the future in these systems and how it could be pivotal to our existence. I really hope that you guys now know the importance of composting. I hope that you guys take it with you home. If you guys want to get started composting, you guys could look up on YouTube the videos. I mean, that's how I learned. I mean, not to be weird, but there's all sorts of types of videos on YouTube. There's 2-minute videos, there's 2-hour-long videos, so you can really pick and choose. But I'll leave you guys with my one major tip. If it's smelly, you're definitely doing something wrong. Going anaerobic, you're making that. Amen to that. Amen, brother. Amen. That's the end of my speech. Thank you guys so much.
Word out.
And if you guys have any questions,
Is compost smelly?
Is compost smelly?
Yeah.
No, man. If you do it right, it should smell like really. I mean, you're gonna hate me for saying this, but earthy. It shouldn't have a pungent smell, but it should be like kind of moist, kind of.
Moist?
Yeah, kind of moist, like damp, like I don't know, like kind of smelling it. It'll be like earthy, Well, it's good. I'm doing the Q&A.
Oh, okay.
So it really won't have a smell. It'll be kind of like I don't know, a damp smell would be a good thing I would say, or earthy, nothing rancid, nothing rotten.
How big is the compost in the home?
The composting in the home can be as small as like a little box, probably about 1.5 feet big, 1.5 feet wide. Or I have used in the past like a 5-gallon bucket. That works pretty well. You just kind of keep the bucket around when you want to toss the compost, so mix it. Yeah. Any other questions?
Have you ever composted your own feces?
Actually, that's not recommended because of E. coli. People do that, but it's for crops that necessarily they aren't eating right away, like maybe like an apple tree or something. Maybe.
So do you just compost food?
Yes, exactly. You compost food, maybe paper products. But thank you guys. Great questions. Great questions.
Thank you.